Bruce Lee, the Dragon, a name that still echoes through generations. He moved like lightning, thought like a philosopher, and lived like a warrior. But behind the legend was a father, a husband, a man who left this world far too soon, leaving behind 2 children who would carry his legacy in ways no one could have imagined. Brandon Lee and Shannon Lee, 2 names bound by loss, shaped by tragedy, and forged by resilience. One pursued his father's path and never saw his wedding day. The other guards the flame of a legacy that refuses to fade. Their stories aren't just about fame or martial arts. They're about what it means to lose everything and still find a way forward. Bruce Lee didn't just teach martial arts, he taught life. Born in San Francisco in 1940, married to Linda Emery in 1964, he became a father to Brandon in 1965 and Shannon 4 years later in 1969. His approach to parenting reflected everything he believed: adaptability, authenticity, growth without limits. In their Los Angeles home, martial arts wasn't just training, it was play. Bruce would fool around with his children, having them throw punches and kicks, teaching through laughter and movement. Brandon was 8 years old, more engaged with the practice. Shannon was younger, just 4 when her father passed, but even she remembers the feeling of his presence, the energy, the security, his playfulness. Linda Lee Cadwell, his wife, allowed the children to watch their father's films, even when they were too young to fully understand. Movie posters covered the walls. When Bruce filmed, Brandon and Shannon visited the sets, absorbing the atmosphere, watching their father become something larger than life. But Bruce Lee was also a philosopher. He journaled obsessively, documenting thoughts on how to live fully, how to express the self honestly. He believed in the principle of be water, empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, adapt to any container, flow or crash with equal power. He created Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist, a martial art that rejected rigid styles in favor of freedom and personal expression. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. This was the inheritance he left his children, not wealth, not fame, but a way of thinking, a way of moving through the world. Then, on July 20th, 1973, in Hong Kong, Bruce Lee died at the age of 32. A cerebral edema, an allergic reaction to a painkiller. Gone before Enter the Dragon premiered, gone before his children truly knew him. Brandon was 8, Shannon was 4. The world mourned a legend. His family mourned a father. Brandon Bruce Lee was born on February 1, 1965, in Oakland, California. He was his father's son in more ways than one: fearless, adventurous, driven. After his father's death, martial arts became complicated. It felt like too much to continue, as if picking it up again would only deepen the loss. So for years, Brandon and Shannon both stepped away from the thing that had defined their father. But Brandon couldn't escape it. He was trained from a young age by his father, and after Bruce's death, Dan Inosanto, one of Bruce's disciples, continued the training. Brandon learned Jeet Kune Do, Wing Chun, Eskrima, Silat, Muay Thai. His footwork was strong, his power unmistakable. He studied acting at Emerson College and later at the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute. He didn't want to be Bruce Lee. He wanted to be Brandon Lee. When offered the chance to portray his father in the biopic Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, he declined. "Imitation is pale," he once said. "We're just different people." At 21, he made his acting debut in Kung Fu, the movie. His first theatrical role came in the Hong Kong film Legacy of Rage, which earned him a nomination for Best New Performer at the Hong Kong Film Awards. He starred in Laser Mission, Showdown in Little Tokyo opposite Dolph Lundgren, and Rapid Fire in 1992. But his breakthrough was supposed to be The Crow. Based on the dark, gothic comic by James O'Barr, The Crow told the story of Eric Draven, a murdered musician who returns from the dead to exact revenge on the gang that killed him and his fiancée. Brandon saw it as more than an action film. It was a chance to show depth, to step away from the martial arts label and into dramatic territory. Filming began on his 28th birthday, February 1st, 1993. It was scheduled to wrap on April 4th, just over 4 weeks. Brandon was engaged to Eliza Hutton, a woman he'd met in 1990 at director Rennie Harlin's office. They planned to marry on April 17, 1993, on a beach in Ensenada, Mexico, at sunset. They wanted to start a family immediately. On March 31, 1993, around midnight, the cast and crew were filming a scene at Carolco Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina. Brandon's character, Eric Draven, was to walk into his apartment after grocery shopping, only to find his fiancée being attacked by thugs. Actor Michael Massey's character, Fun Boy, was supposed to shoot Brandon with blanks from a distance of about 15 feet. But the gun had been used earlier for a close-up shot, loaded with improperly made dummy rounds. A tip from one of the dummy cartridges had broken off and lodged in the gun's barrel. When the gun was reloaded with blanks for the scene with Brandon, it wasn't properly checked. When Massey pulled the trigger, the blank propelled the lodged bullet at nearly the velocity of a live round. It struck Brandon in the abdomen, severing an artery in his spine. He collapsed. Emergency surgery lasted 6 hours. It wasn't enough. Brandon Lee died at 1:04 p.m. on March 31, 1993. He was 28 years old, 2 weeks before his wedding. The film had 8 days left to complete. Director Alex Proyas, with the support of Eliza Hutton and Linda Lee Cadwell, decided to finish it. Stunt double Chad Stahelski, who would later direct the John Wick films, served as Brandon's stand-in. Digital effects superimposed Brandon's face onto the double for the remaining scenes. It was one of the first uses of CGI to complete a film with a deceased actor. The Crow was released on May 13, 1994, debuting at number 1. Critics praised its visual style, its dark energy, its action. Roger Ebert called it a stunning work of visual style and noted it was not only Brandon's best film, but better than any of his father's. The film carried an 87% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and became a cult classic. But for his family, it was an unbearable echo, a father and son, both dying young, both cut down before their time. Bruce at 32, Brandon at 28. The funeral was private. 50 people attended in Seattle on April 3, 1993. Brandon was buried beside his father at Lakeview Cemetery. The biopic Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, premiered 1 month later, on May 7, 1993. It was dedicated to Brandon with the quote, "The key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering." Shannon Lee was born on April 19, 1969, at Santa Monica Medical Center in California. She was only 4 years old when her father died. She used to struggle with the lack of vivid memories. She would rack her brain, searching for something concrete, something she could hold on to. But what remained wasn't a specific moment. It was a feeling, his energy, his love, the security she felt around him, his playfulness. Growing up, martial arts felt too heavy after her father's death. Brandon felt the same way. It was as if continuing would force them to carry a burden they weren't ready for. So, they stepped away. Shannon pursued music. She attended Tulane University. Unsure of what major to choose, her mother and brother encouraged her to take classes in her other interests, acting, creative writing. But she kept falling in love with music over and over again. She majored in music with no clear plan for what to do with it. In 1993, Shannon made a cameo in her father's biopic, Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, performing California Dreamin' as a party singer. That same year, tragedy struck again. Brandon died on the set of The Crow. Shannon was devastated. She had been looking forward to working with her brother, who was excited to help guide her acting career. Instead, she found herself drowning in grief, struggling inwardly, consumed by pain. That's when she turned to her father's writings. About 2 years after Brandon's death, she came across one of Bruce's quotes, "The medicine for my suffering I had within me from the very beginning. Now I see that I will never find the light unless, like the candle, I am my own fuel." His words became her lifeline. She realized her father was still teaching her, still guiding her, long after his death. His philosophies weren't just about martial arts. They were about life, about resilience, about adapting to change. Shannon returned to martial arts as a teenager, driven by a desire to feel closer to her father. She studied Jeet Kune Do under Richard Bustillo, one of Bruce's students. Later, she trained with Ted Wong, Deng Du Liang, and Eric Chen, learning Taekwondo and Wushu. In the late 1990s, Shannon began acting in action films. She starred in High Voltage and Enter the Eagles in 1998. She appeared in the television series Martial Law alongside Sammo Hung and hosted the first season of the game show WMAC Masters. She acted in Lessons for an Assassin in 2001 and the sci-fi film Epic the same year. But her heart wasn't fully in acting. After Brandon's death, the industry felt different, heavier. She found herself drawn to something more meaningful. In 2001, Shannon founded the Bruce Lee Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to preserving and promoting her father's philosophies and teachings. The foundation runs summer camps where children learn about Bruce's philosophy and train with martial arts instructors. It supports personal growth, positive energy, and global harmony through his ideas. Shannon also manages Bruce Lee Enterprises alongside her husband, Ian Kiesler, whom she married in 1994. Together, they oversee her father's legacy, protecting his image, licensing his name, and introducing new generations to the Dragon. In 2015, Shannon announced that the television series Warrior, based on an original concept by Bruce Lee, would be produced. The show premiered on Cinemax in 2019, with filmmaker Justin Lin directing. Shannon served as executive producer. In 2023, she made a cameo in Season 3, marking her return to acting after 20 years. In 2019, Shannon published Be Water, My Friend, The Teachings of Bruce Lee, a book that explores her father's philosophy and how it guided her through loss, heartbreak, and healing. She often speaks publicly about his ideas, about adaptability, about emptying the cup so it can be filled, about flowing like water. Shannon is also a mother. She and Ian have a daughter, Ren Lee Kiesler, born in 2003. Ren has been involved in managing the Bruce Lee Snapchat account, continuing the family's work in keeping Bruce's message alive for younger audiences. Shannon runs the Jeet Kune Do Athletic Association and continues to host the Bruce Lee podcast, where she engages with guests from all walks of life about living fluidly, embracing challenges, and stepping into their potential. Both children grew up in the shadow of an icon, the comparisons inevitable, the expectations crushing. Their mother Linda remarried twice, settling in Rancho Mirage, California, dedicating herself to advancing Jeet Kune Do. She wrote Bruce Lee, The Man Only I Knew in 1975, a bestseller that became the basis for the 1993 biopic, before retiring in 2001 and passing the responsibility to Shannon and Ian. Brandon struggled with the weight of his father's name, determined to carve his own path yet constantly compared. Shannon battled grief after losing both her father and her brother, turning inward to find strength through Bruce's own words. To change with change is the changeless state. Life flows like water. You never step in the same river twice. Bruce Lee's influence didn't die with him, it grew. His philosophy of Be Water became a rallying cry for Hong Kong protesters in 2019. His teachings incorporated into mixed martial arts, psychology, and popular culture worldwide. He appeared in only 5 full-length martial arts films, yet his impact is eternal. The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, and Game of Death, each one proof that martial arts could be art, philosophy, and cinema all at once. Brandon's legacy lives on through The Crow, a film that defined Gothic cinema and inspired directors like the Wachowskis, his death leading to stricter safety protocols on film sets, the 2022 adaptation banning real guns entirely. Shannon's work ensures Bruce's teachings aren't forgotten. Through the Bruce Lee Foundation, Warrior, and her book, Be Water, My Friend, she has carried the torch with grace and determination, applying her father's philosophies not just to martial arts, but to healing, to motherhood, to leadership. The Lee family cemetery plot in Seattle, where Bruce and Brandon rest side by side beneath the yin-yang bagua symbol, has become a pilgrimage site, fans from around the world visiting to honor the father and son who changed cinema forever. Bruce Lee once wrote, "The key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering." He lived 32 years. His son lived 28. Both gone too soon. But what they left behind was love, a philosophy, a way of seeing the world that refuses to be bound by limitation or fear. Shannon Lee is the living bridge between past and future. She has taken the grief of losing a father at 4 and a brother at 24 and transformed it into purpose. A father's love doesn't end with death. It flows through his teachings, through his children, through every person who chooses to adapt, to grow, to be water. Bruce Lee taught his children to be formless, to flow, to crash when necessary, and slip through cracks when the way forward seemed impossible. They learned the lesson well. Brandon's life was cut short, but his final performance remains a testament to his talent and courage. Shannon's life continues, a testament to resilience and the enduring power of legacy. The dragon is gone, but the fire he lit still burns. And in that fire, his children found their way. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the Quotes Time channel for more inspiring stories about legendary figures and the legacies they left behind.